Hello, hello, beautiful people. Feels so weird having a week break. Feel out of rhythm now. Feel out of sync. How's everyone doing? Color code insignia, welcome. McFal, Sheila, Adam, Thessie, wanted to chat. Love to have you all here. Let's see if we're good to go. No more takeovers in that case? No, man, I think you did great. The takeover was lovely. I think if we want to make that like a more consistent thing, we just need to look into what we're going to do with the format going forward, right? I think that could be really, really cool. Hello, John. Welcome, welcome. Oh, message retracted. Oh, bye, Rajan. Sad. Why you sad? I saw the post that you made. Finally got the frames out there. That was looking interesting. Good. I think honestly we should do that first. Because I forgot to add people's finished works to the introduction. So it would be cool if we can have a look at that today. Because we honestly have like a bunch of people. Let me switch on over my camera first. We've had like a bunch of people that have like posted their work. And they finally put it on our station as well. So I think let's start there. Oh my god, the fucking mess that's over here, ridiculous. Yeah, let's start there. I think that could be really interesting to look into, like the people that have posted their work, because honestly a lot of them have been like posting the work that we actually critiqued. So I think let's do that in a little bit. Hello, Frida. Just applied for Dovetail, and that makes you sad? Why does it make you sad? You're just doing applications. Okay. Let's actually have a look. Which screen do we do this on? Should we just do this one? Oh god, this is gonna get messy for a second. Bear with me. See, I knew this was gonna get messy. Damn it. Okay, let's do it this way then. Let's have a look. That's not a mess. That's clean. Well, yeah. Yeah, maybe it's tactical positioning, you know? Let's open this up here. Carl posted their work. I saw this on the Dynasty stream as well, so that was really interesting to see. I was comparing like the feedback that he was given and like the feedback that I gave. Interesting. I actually need to do that more just to get like multiple perspectives. Yeah, this is looking good. Quite nice. I like the final adjustments that have been done. Yeah, good stuff, Carl. Nice one finishing this off with good breakdown GIF. Always is nice. Shader, all the technical stuff. Yeah, cool stuff. Okay, let me give it a like as well. If art staging, oh my god, so slow. It's all gonna open in that tab. Actually, I wonder. Yeah, so let's open this all up. Let's go through them all. God, so many people posting their work at the same time. Dinan posting the first one, I think. First thing ever. It's awesome. Daniel, John, Risa. Oh my god. So many people posting their work. This is awesome. Like I said before, like I'm gonna be putting these on like the introduction of the stream. And I'll probably limit it to like a certain amount so that we have people coming in and people coming out of it, right? We'll see. Foxy Beach Bunny skates in the watermelon. Oh, this is awesome. I love the wheels. The wheels are cool. Little shader on the wheels. Looks awesome. Oh my god, the internals. That's cool. Yeah, nice little breakdown maps as well. Got the references here too. Nice. That's looking awesome. Then we got the frames from John. The trim sheets as well. Yeah, we shouldn't have that many people today for like the actual feedbacking. So let's take a little bit of time to go through people's work to start out. Cool little trim sheet. Then we got Daniel's asset pack. Bunch of different assets to be used in a basement. Okay. Very specific asset pack, but it's cool though. I was so shy to post. Oh, you never should be. Like I don't know if it was like your first post because I didn't look at your portfolio, right? But never be shy to post it. Like it's honestly a part of becoming known, right? Or like getting seen, right? Because you can make really cool stuff, but then if you don't like promote it or like share it with like communities or whatever you're most comfortable with, like no one's ever gonna see it, right? And it can only help in a job hunt, right? Or in your future job hunt or whatever you're looking for now. Yeah. Cool little asset package from Daniel. Oh, cool. So this is like the helmet that we looked at like ages ago, where I really sucked at giving it feedback because it's generally just not my thing. I'm not a hard surface man, you know? Thanks for taking the session. You're welcome. Thanks for being here as well. Yeah, this is cool. I like the presentation as well. It's such a minor thing because it's probably mega scans, like a little bit of fabric, something like that, right? But it really elevates like the presentation. Same here. If you wanted to get like a quick tip, listen to what I just said, right? Like present it with like something underneath it. Yeah. Congratulations on posting your first thing ever, I think. Is that right? Oh no, it's not your first thing ever. The first thing that I'm aware of since you joined the community. Let's call it that way. Yeah. Huge difference between like the previous thing you posted. Awesome. Hello, Dale. Hello, Puns. How are you both doing? I'm doing great. Doing great. I had a pretty chill day at work today. I mean, I was working from home. Like Wednesday is always my work from home day because it allows me to just like chill out a bit after work before getting into Whip Wednesday. Get properly set up and all that kind of stuff. Cool little burn shader as well. Yeah, been going good. I've been slowly but surely chipping away on the book as well. I'm still going through like just checking all the pages for spelling errors. I had a lot of like Beyond Extent related meetings like this week, so I haven't been able to do that much on it as I wanted to, but hopefully I get to have some time in the weekend to get through it. Because right now I'm setting up, as you all know, because you've probably seen the announcement, I'm looking for people that want to help me co-organize the team challenges going forward. And I think we found like a suitable amount of people, and we're just doing like little mock interview, not mock interviews, but like just interviews to see if they're suitable to bring onto the team. But we've already found like 2 people, so we're no longer looking for other people. You think I can apply? Yeah, exactly. We already found our people. So I think tomorrow I still have another call with another person, and then that will hopefully be it, if that goes well. And then hopefully we can get that off the ground and running, because I'm looking forward to seeing what people do with like the next team challenge. It's going to be awesome. Yeah. Yeah, this came out nice as well. I know that I was like really critical about this one, but I think it came out like really nice. So, really great stuff, Joe. I'm excited to see what you've been working on today, because I had a sneak peek. It's gonna look really interesting. Thomas with the medieval market as well. Looking awesome. Oh, so you decided to just do both of them? Okay. Instead of like picking a mood, you just were like, yeah, let's just do both of them at the same time. Which is, I mean, fair enough. Is there going to be more teams this time around? That will depend on the amount of people that apply, right? I think I was looking at the numbers. I think last time 60 people applied, and we approved 35 people of those 60. So that means that we ended up with like 7 teams in total. So if we have more people that apply, the chances are that more people get approved, and that also means that more teams get in, or could potentially get in. Nice. Another Joe here. Yeah, just really the final details on top of it, really pushing it. This came out really nice. I'm really glad to see how far like Joe pushed this one, especially because I can remember like from the beginning, I can still imagine like a rough vision in my head, but like it came really far. I love all the subtle touches of like roughness variation on like every surface. It makes it so much more vibrant, you know? So much more interesting to look at. Nadia, I think Nadia is in today's whip session as well, I think. I just completely misremembering. Let me take a sneak peek. No, I'm completely misremembering. It's cool, little faded sticker, the nice wireframe, nice and clean. Yeah. Awesome. And we got the submersible over here from Alex. This came out cute. Came out looking really nice. Looked like a fun prop to work on. Just like designing the shapes and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Oh, well, Sketchfab store is closing in October. Damn. Fucking Unreal Engine is just hoovering everything up. Because I think they're doing the same with Quixel as well. I haven't read anything about it. I saw people talking about it in the community, but looks like we might need to grab assets before we can't grab them anymore. And then Salam posting their Hobbit work as well. Looking nice. Yeah. Oh, okay, so this is the progress. This one. Sketchfab to fab. Exactly. Yeah, I still need to read into what all that is going to be about, but yeah. Because I still need to migrate like all the content that I've made. Oh, and do like a bunch of like setup work there. Oh, I've been kind of just like ignoring it for a long while. Vertex painting. Nice. Okay, cool. Awesome stuff, people. Like I said before, like I'm gonna post this all, or like put it all in the introduction. In the introduction screen of the stream. That's gonna look sweet. Pick like my favorite shots and stuff. Fabulous. Yeah, I don't know how fabulous. I haven't checked it out yet because I know that a lot of people are already on it, but I don't know how good it is. Well, excuse me. Because they need to do a lot of stuff to improve on like whatever ArtStation has become, because ArtStation, especially the marketplace on ArtStation, is freaking ridiculous. It is not good. Yeah, an engine for Fortnite, I saw that, and it's also just like a standalone like bridge kind of thing now as well, which is cool. I just hope that they just keep like filtering like all the AI bullshit, because honestly, ArtStation is not a place where I want to put my stuff on anymore, like just at all. Like I always saw it as like a viable like place to like have your like art assets, but it's no longer that. Like no way. So yeah, I just hope that they are treating it like a little bit more sensible, and they're not just gonna make it like ArtStation 2.0 and like let all of it in, because then I don't know what's the point anymore. Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see what they do with it. Do some 3D artists use Behance? Yeah, some artists do. Like if you're generalizing to like 3D artists, like motion graphic artists use Behance. Yeah. Or if you want to go more into like architectural visualization, or if you want to do more product rendering, like that kind of stuff, I would probably say that like Behance is probably going to be like your best bet. Where ArtStation to me has always been like a game artist, like a game artist first kind of thing. For portfolio, ArtStation is good, right? Yeah, it's still the standard. So I would recommend, if you're looking to set up your first portfolio, put it in ArtStation for sure, because it has like a template. The template is widely known and widely recognized, so it's going to speed up like everyone's life, from like your life to like a recruiter as well, because you just make an account, you just put stuff on there, and that's it. Like to me, like a good portfolio needs to be easy to navigate, easy to set up as well, or like quick to set up, and it just needs to look good, right? And I feel like ArtStation has kind of met like the balance between all of it. That's also why they haven't done like any major changes on like the portfolio format like in this amount of time. Also because that's probably not where the money is, to be fair. So yeah, like I would only go for like another website when you have some like web design skills, or it comes with a template or something like that. All right. But yeah, feel free to ask any more questions as we go through this. But it's time to get started. Oh, that's the overpaint. Okay. Kind of did the setup wrong, but here we go. Okay, cool. So for people that are new to the format that I'm doing here, this is basically like a weekly slot that I have for like 2 to 3 hours, where I go through like all the work that has been posted in the community, and I'll give feedback on it. So people in the community can tag their work up to be reviewed live. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So today we have, I think, 12 people. Let's have a quick sneak peek on Discord. Yeah, 12. 11, because we're skipping one person. Potentially 2 people. We'll see. But yeah, so if you wanna get your work reviewed as well, you can always sign up to become a member yourself too in the description down below. But let's get started. So the first one that I'm going to be having a look at is we're probably going to start from like all the way in the back. So Jamil is, I think, a first-time poster as well. So first of all, Jamil, welcome to the community. Awesome to have you here. And this is your first time posting for Whip Wednesday too. So you started working on this portfolio piece for about 6 months ago. I began writing a story for the scene, then moved through the process of breaking it down, gathering references. Okay. Unfortunately, I completely missed incorporating feedback along the way. And my goal in joining Beyond Extend is to receive valuable feedback to further improve my work. You can give me feedback on my complete process. If you want to see my workflow, you can check out my Trello board. Not sure how helpful the Trello is going to be. Yeah, I mean, there's like a whole Trello board, which looks cool, but yeah, there's like breakdowns and all that kind of stuff in here too, which is nice. It's nice to see. Yeah, I don't think we have to like look into that too much. So what we have on the screen is at the bottom left, we have the reference, right? So we kind of have that going for us. And then the main screen up here is obviously where the magic is currently happening, right? That's the current state of the scene. But I think first we'll just have a look at like the grand scope of things, right? I think overall we have all the components there, and they're looking pretty decent already, right? So everything is kind of in like this nice place where I would say that you're like 60 to 70% of the scene, right? Which is a good spot to be in. So as well. But I think we're missing like a couple key components, because what we have in the scene, in the concept, is we have like a clearly defined like warm light. And then we have a couple of these like really nice like cold lights coming in. And they form like a beautiful contrast against each other, right? But what we have in your scene currently is one neutral light, which doesn't really tell us anything. It also doesn't give us like any sort of like contrast between something else. It's very neutral, right? It doesn't have like warmth to it. So that would probably be the first thing that I would do is, so changes the color of the light. And then the second thing that I would do is add these lights in the back in. So we want some like natural exterior light to come into the scene and help us fill the scene out a little bit as well. Because again, like we then get a contrast between the two things, and that's going to make the scene feel like a way better. Also, what is important to keep in mind with Unreal Engine is that, or with like any sort of engine at this point, is that the light and the colors and like whatever surfacing material that has colors is gonna drastically change how the scene looks. So for example, if we add that blue light in here, we're probably gonna get like some nice reflections and some nice like roughness variation onto like the wooden panels here. And when we do that, we need to be careful that we don't distract too much from our focal point, which is over here. Right? We want to keep that intact while also having some nice additional elements come in the form of these lights, right? That's why you can kind of see it. I think I would probably like push it a little bit more compared to the concept, but you can kind of see that this one is a little bit more intense. Like this light here is more intense than the natural exterior light, right? So if we zoom in a little bit, you can see that this little guy over here has a harder intensity than like the lights coming from the outside as well. And that's done very, very much on purpose, right? I would probably like drive the contrast even a little bit more so that the light coming from the outside is like a little bit more dim, maybe even like a little bit more overcast than it currently is, or at least like a little bit less intense, right? And then what you could do to kind of fill up like the back end of it, you could just have like, I don't know, like the basic sky of Unreal. We don't need to do that much. Or if you kind of want to fill it up, you can just grab some trees from Megascans and fill up the background a little bit, right? Cool. Then, what is going to be another big component of what I can see from this concept is material variation. Right, and currently we have like the base materials set up, which are looking good. But I can already say that you are going to need something like vertex paint to blend all the different materials as well. Yeah, it's a very cool concept art. Let me actually dig up where it's from. I don't know if Jamil mentioned that actually. Oh yeah, sorry, I just skipped over it. It's a concept art made by like an FCD student. So FCD is Fengzhou School of Design in Singapore. I guess now in China, I think, because they moved. But yeah, they do some really cool stuff. They make some really cool concepts. So yeah, and I think honestly, also picking some of those concepts, and this is not to like speak ill of like the students' work or something like that. They're still learning, right? So there's still a lot that you as an artist can come in and you can put your own spin on it without destroying like the intent of the actual concept art, right? For example, the thing that I mentioned is that I kind of want to put like more contrast in the scene and play around with that more. If this was made by like a seasoned artist, it would probably be like more fleshed out and it would be probably more difficult to try and make it your own, right? Because they have like more experience at that point. So yeah, could be like an interesting trick to add to when you're looking for like a next project, right? So number 3 was vertex paint for blending. I think that's going to help a lot here. We're not seeing that yet because I mean, it's also, it might be for like a later date, but you can kind of see that here on the back with some moss. You can also see like a lot of blending happening on the floor with different kind of materials, right? So it's going to be the way that I would honestly like layer up like the ground especially is I would start with vertex paint, do that first, and then I would add a 4th thing, and that's called decals, right? So decals, I would honestly have like, I don't know, like a crack or something like that in the concrete. You can make them look really good with some parallax occlusion mapping. Crack in the concrete, maybe like another crack here. It gives you options to layer a bunch of things, right? So you have your base material, and then you have like another variation of that material which you can vertex paint in between, and then you add like decals on top of that, and it's just, you're building up like this really intricate like floor material. Yeah, so that's what I would do for the floor. But then the good thing is once you set up that shader, right, that the shader that helps you do like vertex painting, you can use that on any surface you want, and it allows you to just add like a whole bunch of like really cool stuff. For example, water puddles, like Hudson is mentioning. Maybe instead of water puddles, we just have like leaky pipes or something like that, right? So you can then use the same sort of like vertex paint material that you have. You just change the inputs that go into it, and you can have like your normal pipe, and then just paint like a watery surface on top of it, and maybe have like water dripping with like particle effects or something. Right, but you can also use that to paint moss. You can use that for anything, really. So very versatile. Yeah. I think we'll keep it at like that that broad overview. The final thing that I'll probably add is look into your light shadows. Right now, you have one dominant light. And again, this is something that I didn't mention, but like your actual physical light is orange, where like your light that you have placed is neutral, right? It's white. You got to make sure that those two match up, right? Because otherwise it doesn't make sense, because now I'm looking at like an orange light bulb that is casting white light. It doesn't make sense, right? But look into the light shadows as well, because right now this could add a lot of intrigue and a lot of complexity to your scene, but it's not casting like any sort of shadows from like the table or something like that, right? Cool. So that is something, I feel like it has something to do here with this error that we're seeing. I think vertex shader support layer. I'm honestly not too sure what that is. It might be because it's probably a checkbox somewhere. But look into that error that you have here, because that might be linked to the light shadows. Cool. But yeah, thank you so much for posting your work, Jamil. Best of luck on the continuation of the project. And yeah, if you need my help again next week, let me know. Let's see. We can weave some questions into the whole format as well. So if you have a question, feel free to ask them in the chat. We got Puos. PP was. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry. 4-year experience product modeler, but my true interest lies in 3D environments. Is there a chance I may get hired for a different position? Plus, is there a chance I may get hired for a different position if my portfolio fits the requirements for a senior or mid-level 3D environment artist? So if you get hired for a different position, that honestly just depends on the work that you have on your portfolio, right? Just make work that is meant for your future position, and then you can pivot into that. Now, your second question is where, if you are at a 4-year experience level now, because you are going into like a potentially new industry, it will depend on what skills you bring to the table and how good you can sell that position, right? Because you are a product modeler. I have a vague idea of what that means, because I'm so integrated into like games, right? So I have like a vague idea for it. But what it basically comes down is you need to be able to sell what you've already been doing for 4 years and sell that to a games company, and how they can make use of that and how you can leverage that to their advantage, right? So in your case, I would assume you can model like really complex shapes into yeah, product modeler is more focused on creating advertisements. Yeah, but like that can mean like a whole bunch of stuff, right? So I would assume that like you're probably modeling like a whole bunch of like soft surface shapes specifically, right? So they're usually more on like the complex side of things. And if you can then use that as like, say like, oh, you want to go into like a prop modeling role for like an outsourced company, for example, you can kind of use that to your advantage. Whether you are going to get hired as like a mid-level or senior, that just depends on the combination of how good you can sell yourself, plus your portfolio, right? That's what it comes down to. Because some companies might be really open to that, other companies might not be. So you're gonna have to find that out. I do know some people who switched, but But the people that I know that switched, they didn't come from like a 3D background before. So for example, the one person that I'm referring to, like they came from an advertisement role, but it was more like 2D design. And then they had to sort of join as a junior environment artist and then made their way up again, right? So you might be in the same position. Tim, are procedural environment creation... Oh, is procedural environment creation getting more mainstream instead of manually placing assets? I've watched the previous Houdini live stream and they mentioned this. Not really. From what I can tell, the tools are there, right? The tools are there. It's just the issue with the tools has always been that it feels procedural. And we don't really want that. What has been done really successfully in a procedural way is just the recreation of nature, right? So in that case, like the natural side of environment art creation has been, especially in open worlds, has been almost completely taken over by procedurals. But with that, I mean the actual placement of them, right? We still make the assets and then we just hand it over to like this system that is really good at recreating like natural patterns and all that kind of stuff and let us tweak it on the fly. But when it comes to the actual placement of other assets, I have not seen any proof of that. Like, I think honestly also that is one of the reasons why environment artist teams are so big right now, because they still want you to like build the stories and go into the locations and like build the places out and all that kind of stuff. It's not done procedurally. Thank you for your reply. My current job workflow usually includes 3ds Max, Substance Painter, and Blender for the renders, but currently I'm working to some 3D environments in Unreal for portfolio. Yeah. The last thing that I will say on that, or like, well, the next thing that I will say on that is that you need to be aware that, like, I'm sure you are, but like game art is very specific in the way that we optimize things, right? So dive into that as well. Like your work needs to look really good, but also be like very performant as well, where that is probably like a whole new dimension of the stuff that you didn't have to do before. I don't mean procedural as in typing a prompt, more like creating a system after the artist has done creating the assets. Yeah, like I said, like for natural assets, 100%. Like most of the biome placement and like biome painting and all that kind of stuff, the actual placement of it gets done with Houdini, right? Us artists are still like involved into like the biome painting. So what that means is that we can paint where we want the biomes to appear, but the actual generation and placement on top of those areas that we painted is done through Houdini based on like a whole sort of factors, right? No worries. No worries. Yeah, thank you for the question as well. Feel free to ask more and we'll weave them into the format as we go along. Let's see. Next person on the list then is Nine Title. So, an Art Deco vase recovered from a scrapped object. Have a look. It's been a lot of time since I sculpted anything and I satisfied him in my first attempt on one of the sides. I've tried to clean up the pattern to give more variation to the surface to pick up with baking. I feel I still need some work, but feel free to give me feedback. Okay, so the main bit of feedback that I'm gonna give is honestly, in my opinion, to not do this approach. Because especially for the main pattern, right? So like this interior section that you're talking about, I would honestly do all of this in Substance Painter. Or Substance Designer, whatever you want, really. because it's like 100 times easier to do any of this like intricate pattern work, and it gives you like much more flexibility as well. Like, not even kidding. Like, I would honestly, in this case, I would say all the bigger things, right? So for example, the edges of the object, like all those like nails, I would sculpt those and make them look like really nice, right? And make them like look really nice and organic, and like, yeah, spend a bit of time like making all those individual nails. And then maybe like you're doing here, have that little edge inset. But that's it. I would honestly not even touch like any of the surfacing material. I would honestly focus on this is the way that I look at it, right? Sculpt is for big and medium, and then texturing replaces the small stuff. That's the way that I look at it. I would also, there's something about this, the way that it's been made. Yeah, just the way that I look at the reference and the way that it's constructed, it feels like one of those like replicas that is based on the real thing, but is nowhere close to the real thing. Because the reason why I say this is because like this little cut here feels like it's a transition of like the paneling going underneath the edges so that the edges can be bolted onto the panel. But it actually looks like this serves no purpose at all. So I would advise you to look for the real thing if it even exists. Or find different metalwork references that have like this sort of like construction in them, right? The reason why I say that is because like this feels like a lip that kind of gets bent over like the main surface, and then they bolted into the main surface by using these like rivets, right? But the way that it looks from this image is, it just feels weird. Yeah. Anyway, I gotta go to work now, trying to change my work ethics ever since you mentioned that you don't like procrastinating. I mean, that was not meant in a forceful way, but I just don't like procrastinating. Thanks for being here, Hudson. I appreciate it. Cool. Yeah. But I think that's honestly, that's about it. Those are like the two biggest things that I'll say about this. Is because they have like a really big impact, right? Like honestly, the biggest one is this over here, because this is gonna save you like so much time. And then I would actually focus a sculpt on like making it feel more real and making it feel like it's actually constructed. Look into that. Like, how is this manufactured? How was it made? Because that's going to add to the believability of this. Yeah. Short and sweet. But the rest of it makes sense, though. The rest of it makes sense. I think once you start looking into like the way that this is manufactured, you're going to find like really cool details where you can just, yeah, have them incorporated into like the thing. Well, best of luck, 9 title. Next one up is Thomas. Almost working on a sci-fi base over here. I think Hudson already left, but we're gonna answer the question anyway. So, do you think you can use ZBrush for iPad for actual work? Probably sketches. I mean, I have like a Microsoft Surface, and what I do sometimes, I mean, it's been a while now, but I'll detach from like my PC and I'll take it into the sofa and I'll just like sketch. I'll just like draw stuff. Like draw like, I don't know, the last thing that I drew was like a collection of rocks, you know? I just had like a reference picture and just chilling out, like drawing stuff. I could potentially also sculpt on that as well, but I don't really tend to sculpt a lot, so it's probably not going to be that viable for me. But in general, just having like the tablet or like something mobile that you can use to do your work on, I kind of like it for certain things. Just because it takes you out of your normal workstation mode, where it's like, oh, there's so much, I don't know, like so much. What would I say? Like, there's so much pressure on. Oh, now I'm at my workstation. Now I need to work. Whereas I feel like if I then grab like an iPad or like the Microsoft Surface or whatever, like the tablet, and then I start drawing on it, there's way less pressure. And it's more about just like having fun with it, you know? I don't know. Does everyone else feel the same about that? Like, what is everyone else's opinion on that? Would you use like a tablet for like sculpting? Hey, Joe. Good to see you here. In the meantime, let's have a look at Thomas's work. Been looking at a lot of work done on Doom Eternal and pretty much everything regarding the art direction for the scene. Material blending, decals, lighting. Went down a rabbit hole with vertex painting for the modular walls and floor, and I'm not satisfied with how it looks. Might be a little bit overdone. Okay, a little counterproductive going in with circles. Circle was that? A little counterproductive going in. Oh, going in circles with that. Okay, sorry. So I'm gonna leave it alone for now, and then nail down all the accent decals to get the computer screens up to quality. Appreciate any feedback on this. Yeah. I'm using a small Wacom tablet. It's good. Yeah, but like the... Oh, is that a small Wacom tablet that you can detach from your PC? Is that like a standalone one? Because I'm drawing on like a Wacom tablet here as well. I like the idea about going out into the woods and sculpt from life for just fun and studies. That is actually an interesting idea. I don't know why I never thought about that, but that is kind of cool. Huh. That is kind of cool, yeah. There's something about it to me where I would still prefer to take a sketchbook, but that's because I'm so used to taking like a sketchbook with me, I think. Well, I was at a certain point. I'm not used to it now, but yeah, that is actually an interesting idea. I never put the two and two together, you know, going out with a tablet, just sketching on it. The only thing that I kind of then hate is like the battery life is usually like pretty sucks, especially if you're doing like sculpting. I don't know. Sketching on an iPad Procreate is so much better than Photoshop. Yeah, I think I just use like the built-in like whiteboard thing. I don't know. I kind of like that. For some weird reason. Like the Microsoft Surface, the little pens, they have like a little bit of vibration, so it kind of feels like you're drawing on actual paper. And it's actually quite genius how it does it. I kind of like it now. Like once you get used to it. Okay, so Thomas, let's have a look. So you're kind of stuck on just like the materials and the blending and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. Don't lie, you use paint. I would not. I would not, sir. That's horrendous. Yeah, let me actually see. What was it to before? Interesting. Yeah, because I feel like you had like a more defined like color palette before, but I think the lighting just took like a lot away from it. A 6-inch Wacom tablet connecting through the USB. Oh, yeah, but like I think we're specifically talking about like standalone tablets, like a tablet that you could like sculpt on just by itself, right? Not connected to your PC. I feel like honestly, if you're looking at Doom Eternal here, Thomas, I think that's a really good inspiration. You just have to look at the way that they balance the amount of noise that they have in their environment. That is honestly like the biggest thing that I could say here is you got to find a way to make like areas of rest compared to other areas that are noisy, right? So because right now everything feels like pretty uniform. Like you're almost we're gonna exaggerate here a little bit, right? So let's say we have like 2 panels. And let's say your panel kind of does, again, I'm exaggerating here, right? And this is probably like pretty tricky to do. You just have like a bunch of stuff on here, right? And then maybe you have a bolt on here. That works as a panel, but it doesn't really look that interesting, right? So you just need to make sure that you just have like a couple of areas that have like a nicely detailed section, and then leave a lot of space for like other areas, right? Again, I'm not a concept designer or like hard surface designer, right? So this is not up my alley, but I hope that this does the job. Like everything feels kind of just like, it doesn't feel like nicely spaced out. Like it feels really uniform. Whereas this, you kind of have like high density over here, right? In comparison to like low density anywhere else, right? So you kind of want to get to that point where you have an area that is, for example, where you probably want like your detail to be around this area, right? So you can then be like, oh, this panel is going to be open and there's going to be like another control panel in here with like, I don't know, cables that kind of come out. And then maybe we can make that cables that are just like from someone's PC that's over here, right? So they're like connected to like the network, and maybe this connects to here. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to increase the details in the focal point to make us see more of this stuff by adding more details, right? Because we can use details and the balance of details versus like areas of rest to our advantage to draw our attention to something, right? So that's what I'm trying to do here with purpose, right? Like all these cables, they could come down here, go into the same thing, make a connection here, whatever you want to do with that, right? And then you could have certain areas that are just like more empty, right? So for example, these guys, instead of adding the wires there, you just have like the wires go up into like the space over here, but you leave a lot of the empty space here so that you get that contrast of like, oh, there's a lot of stuff happening here, but there's barely anything happening here, right? And because they're so close together, that contrast of the two is going to pull you towards the detailed areas. So keep that in mind. We're talking pretty high level over here. This is only like one of the tools that we can use, right? But in this case, it might be like a really, really helpful one. So, and that happens on like every level, right? Right now, I just talked about like the cables, but the same can also happen when it comes to adding decals and adding panel lines, like adding all those layers. You need to do that with a purpose around where you want to have your detail, right? In this case, we're talking about around the focal point, but you can also just have that around, like, let's say a panel that the mechanics access to, like, just have like a lot of visibility and stuff, right? Like, for example, here, like this is starting to get into like the really nice direction, because you have lots of detail on like a wall that is like pretty empty, right? I'm not saying that it has to be fully empty, but there's definitely a contrast between area 1 here and area 2 over here, right? We can feel that. You can still push area 1 to be like a little bit more detailed with some other elements, but we're getting like a nice gist over there. Let's see. Now talking about like the look of things, right? Is you cannot judge like the full look of things without having like all the decals and all the grunge and like all the dirt in place, right? Because I think you were talking about let's see. Yeah, so you're gonna leave it for now, and you're gonna nail all your accent decals and get the computer screens up to quality. So I feel like you skipped ahead, did like all like the grunge decals, and now you're doing all the decals that are like needed to actually make this space feel like it's an actual working space, right? So in this case, the way that I would break it up is in terms of like layering, right? If I think about this correctly, is you got your base mesh first, and then you can do a little bit of vertex painting if you wanted to. Or like, I wouldn't even do that. Scratch that. So you got your base mesh first. Then I would do your panels, right? Your paneling lines. Then I would do your decals, right? And these are the decals that are your accent decals, all that kind of stuff. And then you go in and vertex paint and then do like grunge on top of it. So that's the way that I build it up, because we're always trying to go for, or the way that I think about this is, okay, the base needs to be there first. Makes sense. Then we got panel lines, because that is going to actually divide and make structure to the whole space. And they're going to be the bottom layer of all the decals, right? Because if we move them, we have to move like the rest of the stack, right? Because they're dependent on that. And then we actually have like the accent decals, because they're also important, right? But they are going to follow the panel lines. And then we can add grunge and dirt and all that kind of stuff on top of it through vertex painting and grunge decals, right? But that's the way that the layering works. There's some really great breakdowns from Felix, I think. Felix Leyendecker. From Doom Eternal, where he breaks down like all the layers that they've done to get Doom to look as good as it does. They're really cool to look at. But yeah, in short, focus on the areas of noise and the areas of rest. Have those details around like your focal point, so that becomes like an automatic point where we are going to focus. And then think about the way that you're going to layer things up, and do them in like a logical way by doing the accent decals and all that kind of stuff first, before you start adding noise and grunge and all that kind of stuff on top of it. Last thing, a little bit of a hint, is balance your lighting by doing the squint test. The squint test is where you squint your eyes and you look at like where you're drawn, right? Right now, this area, and this area, let's say this entire area actually, they all have the same value. So what that means or like the same sort of intensity to make it simpler, right? What that means is that a lot of your attention is going to be divided between those 3 points, and we don't know where to look. So we need to actually be more intentful or like purposeful with the lighting that we use and the intensity of that lighting. So I would honestly go in here. We're gonna duplicate this really quick. And then we're gonna do dodge, I guess. No, dodge is increasing it. Just gonna really quickly. I think it's still set to like midtones. Let's try it again. That's better. Right, and if we then disable the pixel layer, we can see what that does for us, right? So right now, everything is focused on those 3 points. But if we disable some of those areas and we balance the lighting a little bit better, we can then see that we get like a more effective way of just like focusing on a singular point where ideally the focus needs to be, right? So be very purposeful with the way that you use your lighting and balance the intensity between all those points as well. We are gonna have oh my god, sorry about that. We actually are gonna have a workshop release pretty soon that's going to be available to the public from that is basically going to be talking about like lighting for environments from Salvador Sanchez. So that will be releasing pretty soon, and that might be really helpful for you, Thomas. Yeah, cool. Keep up the good work and keep at it, man. Next one here, Zaim. I feel like we need to go a little bit quicker. God, I thought we had a chill one today. Keep yapping on. Saeem. Oh, that's this one. I think this is more lighting based stuff as well. From afar, the shadows look okay, but when the camera moves closer, the shadows partially disappear. All the assets in the scene are made by me, apart from the barrels and the U bags. Ultra dynamic sky as the main light source. Okay, so it's mostly about just lighting issues, right? Or like improve the lighting. I honestly, this is also why I added this guy over here in, right? Always go back to like your ref and see what the reference is telling you, right? What I really like in the ref is that we don't get like any sort of like haze or like fog, distance fog, until we get to like the far distance, right? Because with some of these, for example, this render over here, right? We have a lot of foreground fog, and that is causing everything to just kind of like blend together because like all the values are the same anyway. And then you have like a fog that's kind of just like another layer on top of it that is just like blending everything together again. So that's the first thing that I will say. That's just a test render to show the shadow issue. I mean, they're all the same thing though. Like it's hard for me to distinguish between them then, right? Let me see. So let's see. So that means that these 3 guys are test ones, I guess. Okay. Then I'm just gonna flip it on its head, right? That is something to play around with in the opposite way then. Where if you're gonna have that distance fog. Wait, so can we just remove those then? Let's see. Okay. So, gonna do this again. Hello, can I remove? Thank you. Jeez. So for the shadow issue by itself, I would just try and use like a troubleshooting area that we have like in our community. I have not looked at like any of the additional images that you shared. I think these are from like the movie, like the render queue, right? Whatever that tool is called. I honestly, I'll be honest, I don't use those tools. I only use the console commands. So I have, it's built into Unreal, but I keep forgetting what the name is called. But there is a drop down where you can toggle like console commands on and off. And then I just use like the high screen resolution screenshot. High resolution. Because I heard a lot of people talking about like issues that they have with like the render queue and like rendering it out and like all the specific settings. I honestly just do all my work in like the movie render queue is a godsend. It's really great. Yeah, okay. Maybe honestly I'm missing out, you know, 100%. But the way that I do it is I just use like a high res screenshot and then I just combine that with my console commands that I have saved, my console variables, I think. That might be something to look into if you're having specific issues with like rendering images out, right? Because you're saying that the shadows look perfect in the viewport, but then once you render it out, it comes out crooked. So then I would, in that case, I would honestly just render it out in the viewport. Unless you're doing, yeah, unless you're doing like any videos or something like that, right? Then, let's have a look. We struggle with lighting. Need advice on how I can improve my lighting in the scene. Yeah, so I think when it comes to the lighting, we do need some like far distance. Like we do need to capture this element still somehow, right? I still want to see that. So that's the first thing that I would look into. I will give you like another I will give you another recommendation. I feel that I've talked to a lot of people that kind of get lost with like just the amount of options and the amount of stuff that you can tweak with Ultra Dynamic Sky. For all the stuff that I render, I've only used like just the basic sky that's in there. I find it like way easier to tweak because it has less options in it and they're more reliable. Again, it's up to you. We're gonna try to keep this like pretty generic and pretty high level, right? But I do want some, so that's why I'm saying I do want some distance fog, and ideally I do want some contrast in that fog as well. Because like we're seeing here, I like that you have, I feel like the sunlight is almost like a little bit neutral, but then the distance fog has a blue tint to it, because it creates like a really nice contrast between like all the sand and like orange like stuff that we have in our scene with that blue light, just kind of like negating some of that, right? So always think about contrast between the main dominant colors that you have and try to play a balance between the two. So making it blue, that can help as well. Let's see, what else can we learn here? I feel like also the sun intensity that we get from the concept is really interesting. It's almost like the light is more neutral as well. But this might be... Hold on, let me finish writing this. This might be because of the intensity kind of washing out some of the colors, or it might also be because like lumen is having an effect on the scene, and maybe your base colors are a little bit too saturated compared to the concept, and it's kind of just like bouncing around like a lot of like orange light, right? So that's also something to be aware of, that some your albedo and your base color on your surfaces has a huge impact on like the way that lumen is going to interpret like GI just bouncing through the scene, right? So that is something to keep in mind as well. Because a lot of this stuff is going to come down to getting the basics right, and then doing like some really, really good post-processing on top of it, right? What you actually could try already to see what the effect of that would be, I would definitely see if you can get like the light to be like a little bit more intense and more neutral as well. I think neutral is the big factor here, and then potentially more intense. I'll put like a question mark next to that. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize that I was behind my camera. Yeah, but like make the light more neutral and potentially more intense, and then see if you can do a little bit of post-processing on top of that with a color lookup table. This is a thing. This is just like a texture that you bring into Photoshop. You do all your adjustments on top of it, and then you bring that texture back into Unreal, and it will take over like the post-processing that you have done in Photoshop, but it will translate it to Unreal, which is really cool. And if you just type in LUT, Unreal Engine is probably going to be the first thing that you find. You will have to download like a specific texture and follow the documentation on there, but it's a really cool way of working. Yeah. Let's see. What else can we get here? You're also gonna want to have your skylight. You are probably gonna want to... Let's see. These ones, they kind of look different from each other. It's almost like the skylight here is almost like non-existent, because we get like just pure black shadows over here, right? And what a skylight is going to do, it's going to like elevate those shadows to be like lighter than they are, right? So kind of imagine that you're kind of faking just like a general like GI volume, and you're just pushing around like the bounce light to make it like a little bit more intense. And then also, yeah, again, keep that contrast in mind, right? Maybe you can play around with the colors, because what I do like here is that you can kind of see that like in the shadows, we're getting like blue and purple tones, right? So infusing that in there could be really cool as well. Yeah. I hope that helped. Color code insignia. Let me know if it did. But yeah, the scene itself is looking really nice though. Like a massive amount of work went into this already. So yeah, really cool to see. Really cool to see these huge structures. I think what I would love to see is, I want to see you pick out like one or two places. Let's start with one and make it just like really cool, right? Like make it actually tell a story just by itself, right? So for example, This screenshot over here, you could do something really cool with like the door being halfway open and like there's like a light coming outside of it, and maybe, I don't know, do something else with like the bridge that leads up towards it, right? Like maybe a battle has been taking place or something like that, and they're like defending this person that's doing this like weird ritual in this hut. There is a lot of cool like story potential here. That would be cool to see. Yeah. Great job so far, and keep us up to date. Right. I'm not gonna jump around, keeping it organized today. Sheila is doing some beautiful stuff over here. I love this. So nice. Sure, I'll try. You got this, man. Go on. You got this. I mean, honestly, the stuff that I mentioned about like making a story, right? Treat that as like a thing that you do at the end, right? Don't do that for me, because if you're just like, hey, look, like I don't care what you're saying here, right? You don't have to, right? Focus on the things that you want to do first, and then if you still want to work on it, then you can do it. You gotta follow yourself first, right? Cool. Sheila, let's have a look. I'd love to get your feedback. In addition to the main camera, I've added a few more angles. Yeah. All nice angles here. Yeah. Let's see. The last one also shows the back, which wasn't in the original concept, but I thought it would be nice to include an additional view and reuse some of the pieces I already have. I also created a door using a reference picture I took. Do you think the extra shots work? Also, what are your thoughts on the textures and the lighting overall? Is there anything else that you think could be improved? Okay. Let's have a look. So first of all, I love the main shots, right? The main shots are in like a really good stage. I like all this like additional stuff that's just coming in. Like all these things. I don't know. Like it just looks really nice, you know? Just additional lines that just like lead you towards like the main focal point. This looks really cool. Also, just like the colors, right? Like the somewhat more desaturated color palette like really works well. It's yeah, really good choices in colors. Make some nice water here. I feel like let's see. Yeah, that's potentially something that I would love to see. It's because it is in the shots, right? I kind of want to see like something happening around the edges of the water. Feels like you can do something like really interesting with that. Like very subtle ripples or something like that. There's probably like some cool shader tricks you can do for that. It'd be like really interesting. So the water shader and just having like interactions with objects, right? Could be cool. Because the rest of it looks like so nice already. No, I feel like those details are definitely going to make it or break it, right? Same where you can do like a little bit of a transition going from like the water coming out of it. Just a little bit of like a vertex paint, right? Where you like darken stuff that comes out of the water, so you can get like this feeling of like the waves just like not going up and down, but just like sort of like the water is just like ebbing and flowing. It'd be really cool to incorporate that on like a lot of the assets, really. And like all I'm thinking there is just like a slight variation in color, right? Just making it like slightly darker. Very simple stuff, but let's see. But then while I take the rest of the scene in, let's have a look at these additional shots. I am not too sure about this one currently. I feel like it's almost like what is this one showing? Oh my god, you can barely read like any of the text that I'm writing on here. But that's the question that I have, right? For this one, very clear, right? Got a nice amount of contrast. You can do so much cool stuff with just like a little bit of a story. Like you can imagine like a person walking into the shrine. I can clearly see like the visuals here, right? But with this one, I'm not too sure. You could almost, if you build like something of a story here where maybe there's like, I don't know, what you oftentimes see in churches is like they have like these tables with like lots of like little candles, right? Like little shrines, and you can buy like a candle yourself and you can light it yourself just to do like an offering to the gods, right? If this is supposed to be a temple like that, maybe something like that could work. But I mean, that's just one option, right? Like you could do like an offering. You could also replace this with like someone sitting in a chair, and then maybe they're reading the books that you have here, right? So maybe this is more like a library kind of thing. Yeah, you almost want like a miniature story to happen here. And again, like the example that I gave is just an example, right? You can do whatever you want, like whatever story that you think fits the best, you can add that here as well. I think if you do that, then you could like hint at something more, right? Kind of like the same thing is happening here, where you have the open door and that is speaking to our imagination. Right? So I can kind of imagine that, oh, someone could have just left the door open, or someone left in a hurry, or someone got in that wasn't supposed to get in, right? Like we're kind of making up like our own stories with this. And then also the composition of the whole scene like kind of really helps with that too. So I don't think you need to do all that much here necessarily, depending on like how much you want to show, or like how story heavy you want to go, right? Because I feel just having like the whole scene and you just have like this setup where you go to like the shrine and then you make your offering, whatever, that's cool enough already where it doesn't need that much more. Maybe an open book or scroll on the floor. Yeah, you can do that too. See, what else do you have available in your scene? Is there anything else that I can just steal? Because what I'm thinking, if you have like an open book or a scroll, you could potentially even just like take this vase, right, and move like a couple of vases here, so that you just have. You will probably have to like remove the shrine behind it, right? But you can like put the vase like full with like just scrolls, right? And then you have like a couple of them. You can do some cool stuff. Like I'm looking for, at this point, I'm looking for opportunities to to add to the scene using pre-existing assets that you've already made, right? So an open book, a scroll on the floor, you could do just like bash it together with the vases, stick like a scroll in it, duplicate it a couple of times, scale it up and down. You're good. Maybe you can use like a couple of other scrolls here as well, where someone was reading the scroll but they didn't finish it. I don't know. It's up to you. I'll leave the idea to you. There's some cool stuff that you can do with that though. Because you're almost making it into like a mini hint towards something else, right? I don't think you need to go that heavy because it is gonna be here in like the scene, right? So it just needs to be a hint at it, not necessarily has to be heavy-handed like I was making it. Will, would parts of the scene be wet above water due to evaporation? As a building is near water, would it get damp patches in places? I don't think so, because this is like, it looks like a really open building, right? So there's probably like lots of wind and all that stuff coming through here, so it wouldn't necessarily get that much. It could be potentially, this is the thing, right? Like this becomes honestly a question in my head of like, okay, do we go for like realism or do we stick with like the clean style? Because like if we do like a little edge at the bottom here, that's fine. But let's say we want to do like realistic weathering on the roof, then it will probably add like a lot of noise to the roof. If you search old boathouse, there's ref that shows dampness. Yeah, for sure. Like especially in all these crevices up here, like you would kind of expect that, right? But then it becomes a question of like, how much do you want to add? How much noise do you want to add, right? It could be a cool idea to explore though. So we're gonna add it regardless, and then Sheila can make her own mind up when it comes to it. It is still a good suggestion though. I keep doing this, right? Like I try to explain everything away, but it is a good suggestion. So we'll let Sheila decide if she wants to do that or not. Let's see. Do you think these extra shots work? This one works great. I think this one, even though again, like it's very subtle, right? Like it's just like an open door, but it hints at something. I kind of like that. Because I also feel that most of the scene is set up in the same sort of it has a good layer of subtlety when it comes to the storytelling, right? Like this is not like an overly decorated shrine, it's just like a really simple shrine, right? And then there are hints to like books and stuff, and there are hints to like weapons, but it's very subdued, very subtle in a good way, right? So that's the thing that you definitely should maintain. What are your thoughts on the textures and lighting work overall? Like I said before, I really like the textures. I like how complex but also clean they feel. Very, very unique. I think if there was like something that I would look at breaking up some of the straight lines that you have, right? In some areas they make sense. Like these wooden pillars, they're going to be pretty straight. But if you can like knock out like, I don't know, every couple of brick or something like that and just add like a little bit more variation to like some of the straight lines here. I think that could really set it apart, right? Like we're getting to that stage where it's more about like the details like this. So for example, this guy as well feels very straight. I want to kill like every straight line, right? So this guy coming over here. Same thing again. Let's call it like number 3, right? Like, was it number 3? No, number 4. So this would be like a variation in straightness as well. Especially because like there's so much texture and like height variation to the floor itself already that we kind of need to find ways to also bring that more towards like the rest of the scene as well, right? It's mostly honestly on the silhouettes. Like I would find like areas to just like break it up even more. And what that means is literally just the occasional brick. You just take like one or two and you just like rotate them more or just break them down a little bit. That's it. That's it. And then yeah, I think having like the wetness effect going on here could just give it like a little bit of a kick. Right? Add a little bit of complexity to it. That could be pretty interesting to look at. But the rest of it looks really nice. There are like potentially areas like this where like a pillar like this usually goes into like a supporting edge up here. And the only reason why I look at this is because it's like a big open surface. It feels like it's not as detailed as like the rest of the scene, right? So you would just have a trim here. Then you would have to think about like some of the other areas as well. Maybe there's like the same trim in the back that kind of just goes all the way around it. Maybe do the same thing here as well. There's also like these supporting beams, or like, I don't know, these beams that kind of go into nothing. So maybe you can use the same trim again and kind of just like connect them up to like the outer edge. Yeah, like I said, the reason why I focus on that is because it is one of the biggest surfaces that doesn't feel as detailed as some of the other surfaces, right? So that's why I'm kind of bringing it up. And my way to deal with that is then having like a trim around the border that gives me an excuse to have more details in the area that kind of makes it more finished. Because your trim work is really good, right? Like these trims up here, like that stuff is awesome. So I kind of expect the builders of this place to kind of have the same amount of detail on like the trims around like the borders of the ceilings. But yeah, honestly, this is all like really nitpicky stuff, right? I feel like overall, freaking solid job. Remember, I mean, I can barely remember what I said, but I remember saying something that, like, looking at your first environment, like I was really keen to follow your progress because I knew that there was like a spark in you, right? There was just something that I could tell that this was a thing that you really wanted to do, and the amount of time that you were putting towards it, like I can really just feel the passion that comes from like the work that you pick, the concept that you pick, like the way that you approach it, like how consistency you do it as well. It's really inspiring to see, like honestly. Really inspiring to see. And I think there's no better reward than looking at an artwork like this and only being able to pick like maybe a couple of details here and there. Honestly. Great work. Thank you for sharing it with us, Sheila. I really appreciate it. No worries. Also, hello, Boborb. Good to see you here. How are you doing? Let's see. Who's next? Joe. Joe Bates. I did not see this scene last time, but this looks really awesome. Let's see. I mean, freaking look at this. Okay, I'm gonna... this is gonna sound so weird. but I cannot not say this because this is honestly my first thought, is that the latest piece that you did, right? It looks really nice and you did a good job on it, but I feel like your what would I say? When was this? Like the 11th? Yeah, I feel like your skills are just like way more suited on detail work and like asset work and just making stuff like really, really, really look nice, right? Because all this, I mean, the right is a reference image, right? And then the left is like what you've done so far. I feel like this looks fucking awesome. Looks freaking amazing. Yeah. Yeah, I almost feel that this should be like the way that you should go, right? I mean, it's fine to experiment with other stuff, right? I'm not trying to like pigeonhole you into like a separate thing, but this feels like, I honestly don't know where this came from. You know, like this looks awesome. But let's see. So I was wondering mainly about the composition and the lighting. I've pretty much tried to match the reference I could find at the moment, but not sure if some of the areas could be pushed a little bit more. Let's see. Oh, you've gotten some really good feedback already. Just trying to get some context here. So let's see. I tried to match the reference. Also quite tempted to make a few more color items as I'm reusing the same parts quite a bit at the moment, but not sure if that's really needed. I was also thinking about these 4 shots would be my main ones. So I was wondering how you felt about those as well. Okay, so I've properly just like cluttered them all together. So let's see. Which one is the latest one? These guys are sort of the same, so we're going to do a little bit of cleanup here. I think, honestly, these are the 4 ones. So let's... And this is the ref on the right. Cool. Let's have a look. Doing well, thank you. That's awesome to hear. Glad to hear that. Let's see. So lighting and composition. I feel honestly the lighting, you're not going to do too much on it because it is very straightforward. It is relatively simple. And I feel like you've pretty much nailed it. It's not the same, right? It's not the same as the reference, but in like a good way. I would honestly just say the next step is try to see what you can do with post-processing. Like, see what you can do with it inside of Photoshop as well. See what you can do with some Photoshop work and then make it work that way. So post-processing. Because yeah, the lighting is pretty straightforward. I don't think we need to change that all that much. I think what I do want to see is maybe like a little bit of color grading. Like color grading as in like pushing the contrast between the overly orange values that you have now and potentially like pushing it more into, again, giving like a little bit of contrast with like some blues or some purples or something like that in there so that we get like a little bit more color complexity. Right, so that's what I would focus on or try to get. Right, and then on the your next question was if you needed to make like any additional items because you feel like you reuse like a lot. Oh, and then we need to talk about the 4 shots that you picked as well. The only thing that I could potentially say is just you have these like zoomed in shots, Well, to be fair, mostly this guy over here. And it feels very heavy on the depth of field. I think you can change that up a little bit. So like heavy depth of field. Got some numbers in there too, which is pretty cool. At first, I know that this is not the case by looking at stuff more, but like at first I was like, oh, this is all just like the same number. But if you actually look at most of the cabinets, like they all have like a different number. So maybe, and this is going to be like a silly suggestion, but like maybe make a transition from like 64 to 65 over here. It's more about, and this is actually like an interesting like little showcase of what we sometimes have to do as like game artists, is that we want to give the perception of complexity without necessarily adding like the complexity itself, right? But if you do this on like a micro level on your portfolio and you call out like this detailed shot, I would honestly try to showcase that you have like all the numbers and that there is like a transition between the two. I don't know where it like logically transitions, right? But I would like kind of have one here anyway. Let's see. Hey Cole, how are you doing? The other thing that I'll say is the fonts and the types feel very clean. The fonts really feel very clean. Like if you look at some of the fonts, like they don't have like any damage or any scratches or any fading. If you kind of want to give it that like extra touch, I don't know if you can actually see it over here. Probably on your high resolution images. Let's see. See if I can find one. Yeah, maybe not really. Not really see all too much on that image anyway. But what I would try to do is like vary them up, especially again in the detail shot, right? So for example, if let's say someone came in here and just like went over the patterns bit and they were just like, oh no, wait, it's actually fix this over here. So what I'm imagining, because my grandfather, like he had like his own like workshop as well, and like it was like not as complex as this, but it had like serious amount of complexity in it. And one of the things that I loved that he did is like he had like all these like old ice tubs, but like he like drew like the stuff that was in it like by himself, right? And then sometimes he would like sticker them up, sometimes he would draw on them, but it had like this complexity of like, oh, I can't be bothered to like, I don't know, put like a sticker on this properly, so I'm just gonna write on top of it. So maybe you can then also just do like, oh, this is not 65 yet, this is like a 64, and like he scratched it out or something like that himself, right? But at least I would add like some like a random variation onto like the fonts because they do look really clean in general. And break that up a little bit as well. Again, only for the detail shots, right? Because I don't think you're going to see that much in like any of the other shots, but it'd be cool. Now onto the 4 ones that you picked. I think you got a good selection, honestly. I almost want you to do like an additional one, maybe with like a main subject here. Maybe he's fixing the lamp that we have here or something like that. I don't know. I'll just say like the 4 shots that you currently have going for you, they look really nice. Apart from like the heavy depth of field that we mentioned. Don't really have anything to say on them, honestly. I like the way that they look. I like the way that they're composed. I like that you pay like extra detail to like extra attention to like all the details. None of it feels straight, which is really good. And as for your question on like having to make like additional elements, that's honestly up to you. When I look at the whole image, I don't get that vibe that there's a lot of reuse, right? I mean, I know that there's a lot of reuse, but it doesn't feel like it's like all the assets in there are like reused like too much. But yeah, I'll leave that up to you, honestly. But I don't really notice it from the beginning. Yeah. This is awesome, Joe. Like, this is freaking amazing. So yeah, really looking forward to see what you're gonna do with like the final adjustments of it. It's gonna be great. Oh, one thing that I just noticed. There might be some opportunities for like reuse for example, this chandelier here. It's so hidden in the back. Maybe you can put it on the front here so that you can imagine that he's like repairing this sort of like chandelier, because you don't really see it. Maybe color it in like silver instead of gold. I don't know. There might be like a lot of reuse there, like potential reuse. Or maybe even, let's see. Are you doing this already? Because you could grab this lamp and just like separate some of the pieces and separate them in a way where they kind of make sense and they still look good just by themselves, right? Like one of the arms, just have those separated and you could have like a bunch of assets again, right? So yeah, maybe you look to repurpose. Yeah, maybe look to repurpose this asset. Maybe there's another one as well. For example, the lamp. I don't know how feasible that is, but yeah, could be cool. Right. Thanks for posting your work, Joe. Awesome stuff. We're gonna go to Darkon next. Darkon is already on screen. Questions of the week. I wanted to add more of a smoky steam effect right above the tub to give it that hot look, but I'm unsure if I should spend the time to learn such an effect or should I move on. If you wanted to make that effect, see if you have one available from the marketplace. Otherwise, just move on. The reason why I say this is because you're not a VFX artist, right? So if you then spend time learning all that, like all that stuff, it's honestly not worth it. And I feel like for that specific example, it might be too complex to make it look good in a short amount of time, to make it convincing. Oh, thank you for subbing. Appreciate it. Yeah. So, Steam. From the marketplace. Just get it. What's happening here? That's better. I might try it, but not sure. If it's free, try it. If it's not, depends on how badly you want it. I don't think it's necessary. Because yeah, I feel like the whole place kind of feels like really steamy at the moment, right? So I think you did a good job in that kind of sense. The only thing that I would potentially look into like how to break this up is like the noticeable edges here. But the because yeah, it feels like there's just like a cone mesh, you know, sticking out from like the ceiling. You can kind of see it here too. Like maybe it's like a circle or something. But I feel like the steam that you have going on the floor works really good. So I like that a lot. Additions to the staircase too. It's really nice. And I think there was another question here. So on last week's stream, it was suggested that for the tub I should use a 45-degree bevel on the edges, but the tub itself is baked. Would it be better to use a trim sheet for the tub with bevels, or is baking from high to low the best approach for a central piece like the tub? Adam's suggestion was actually 100% on point, where if you want to make something like this that looks what is the best way of saying this, as generic as it does, right? It doesn't have like a lot of like really unique detail where you need like a unique map on top of it, because all the stuff that you did, I don't know if you did this in the texture or not, but like all this like generic like variation, that can just be like decals or something that you project on it, or just like a tileable that you use, right? So that is like the why Adam was bringing that up. I will say, I don't think that you should go back now and redo the whole thing. Just keep it as is, but keep that in mind for the next project. Whereas, like, usually, and this is my advice always, is that if you have a hero prop, like, you should spend the most time on your hero prop and make it, like, really unique and nice looking. But in this case, this is kind of an outlier because it is, like, pretty generic, just the way that it looks by design, right? So in this case, I think your approach is probably not the best one, but I would also not go back and adjust it because, I don't know. You're so far down the line that I would just keep it for the next project, right? So yeah. Because like Adam said, like the way that you would normally do this is you would use like weighted normals and then just slap a tileable on it. Weighted normals plus tileables plus vertex paint plus some decals, right? That's the normal approach for something like this, especially again because most of the stuff in this scene kind of looks the same, right? So there's probably like a lot of reuse that you could do with that, but that's a topic for the next environment. Yeah, I hope that helped. 2 quick questions. Thank you for posting those questions, Darkon. Yeah, nice to see the updates. Always happy to see updates coming your way. So yeah, I think we're nearly done. Looking forward to seeing what you can do with the final push. Appreciate it. Thank you. No worries. No worries. Thank you for sharing your work as well. And now we lost track, so we're all over the place now. Next one is Luke. Ready for the next project? I know. Yeah. Soon, man. I think, honestly, the state that it is, I would honestly try to fix like the cone light that you had, right? Especially the edges of that. And then I would honestly just focus on like what you can do to like get the most out of it, like polish, post-processing, like all that kind of stuff. So I imagine like a week, yeah, a week, I would say. Yeah. Did a good job, man. Did a good job. Didn't pick an easy project because the water is fucking annoying, but I think we're nearing the end. Okay, Luke. Awesome to see this here. So, yeah, this is great stuff, especially because we went from like focusing on like a big world to like a singular asset, and I like what I'm seeing here already. So, really cool stuff. let's have a look at what you wanted to ask. So, feedback on the material. The wood is a custom material from substance. Okay. You got some wood directionality going, which for the most part is looking pretty nice. You just have to watch out for like how noisy it is. Because there is like a lot of noise happening, especially on the edges. So that would be the first thing that I would say, watch out for that. Gotta keep that in check. I mean, there's nothing wrong with noise, right? But the general thing that I try to hint at is that you can have noise if there is like other parts of the mesh that is balanced to show off that noise effectively, right? So for example, if most of it, if you didn't have like all the normal detail on the top, then the edge detail would stand out more. My internet is way behind, so I won't really be able to interact. Sorry. Oh, I think if you click on like the live thingy, you might be able to like interact a little bit better. Sometimes YouTube gets out of sync, so maybe that could be helpful. Oh, I see where you're getting your noise from. Okay, so your noise is coming from a generator, right? And it's kind of just applying like a bunch of generic noise on like all the edges, right? I would not do that. I would try to build it up like in a more subtle way. So the way that I would suggest to work is because right now, the more that I look at it, the more that it feels just like it's just generator chaos, right? It just is, it's stuff all over the place. Like it doesn't really make that much sense where like the contrast or like the material is applied at this point. So you want to be more subtle and also what's the best word here? More deliberate. More deliberate with how you texture your work, right? Because you can add like a material on top of it that's from substance, but they are usually like super generic and they just give you like the most generic result as well, because they're usually built with like a lot of filters and generators and blah blah blah. But if you want the best control, you want to have well, if you want the best outlook, you want to have more control over what you're doing, right? So I think this is a good first test. What I would honestly try to do is build a material from scratch and think about like all the layers that you would expect there to be, right? So you can for example still use like the base material with the wood, but then allow yourself to then have like all the additional layers on top of it and dictate how they're going to be used and what they're going to be doing, right? So for example, if we pick like a very specific thing, you have like these patches of discoloration, which is pretty interesting, right? Like I like the variation that is adding to the asset, but the issue with that is that it's in a lot of like random places where we wouldn't necessarily expect like a lot of like discoloration to happen, right? Because what discolors a material? It can happen in like a bunch of ways, but like I would use them in a way where like, okay, we're going to use the tabletop a lot, right? So that's going to see a lot of wear and tear. So we're going to get discoloration on the tabletop. Cool. Probably more on this section because that looks like it's almost like, I don't know, it's meant to be used as like a chopping board or something like that. It looks like the functionality here is that we're doing something on top of it. So this is going to be the area with like the most wear and tear. And then we can kind of assume that like the rest of it is a little bit less than like this area here. And then we're gonna have like barely any discoloration here, apart from maybe where like the dirt comes up from the floor. Right? And then we just remove like any discoloration up until that point. The reason why there's discoloration at the bottom is because we keep moving stuff around, we keep stomping into it, like we keep shoveling dirt against it or whatever. Right? Like that's where we expect like a lot of discoloration to happen. And this comes from just looking at your references, right? And being like very specific about the way that you apply this. And this is, we've only been talking about a single layer, right? I'm only talking about discoloration and where that happens on a mesh, right? Ideally, you want multiple layers of discoloration as well, where you can have like strong discoloration with, let's say, like normal damage, right? So for example, if you use this as a chopping board, you're gonna have like more variation in the normal map, and like the veins and like the veins of the wood are gonna pop through. Where in some other areas, like it doesn't have the same kind of discoloration damage, right? But that's basically what I would do for the entire asset, and try to build it up yourself and try to be very deliberate about where you put that information. Right? Like, yeah, that's the way that I would do it. So for example, if we would color like this whole thing white, this is actually, could be like an interesting example here. So if we go on top of this. Hello, Antonio. How's it going? So if we go on top of this and we set this to midtones, because I'm expecting like some dirt to happen in the crevices, right? But what I want to have is a lot of dirt is going to happen on the board itself. I'm just doing like a really quick and dirty thing here, right? We kind of want to have like a little bit more of a gradient here. So that you have the bottom of the thing. The bottom of the whole thing. And like this is an area where we can't really reach. So I'm expecting like a little bit more dirt to be here. Which is fine. And then this stuff, you wouldn't really get that much dirt, right? Because it's not that close to the ground. So we can like reduce the amount of dirt that we have here, apart from maybe like in the edges. Right? And then the rest of it can kind of follow like the same routine, where we can just like really tone down and be like more specific around the dirt, because we want to make it more contextual towards where dirt is going to be on the floor, right? On the floor or the areas where we use it the most, right? So, right, you see what I'm doing? Like even with this like black and white mask, I'm being like way more deliberate with the amount of dirt that's going to be on like the different kind of surfaces. Right, so I'm trying to keep in mind that like the top area here is going to have like way less dirt than the bottom. And that we have like this like almost like nice looking gradient, but we still don't, we don't want to get rid of like all the dirt at the top, right? But there is going to be stuff happening there, but the majority of the dirt is going to be happening around this area, right? And that's one way to think about like all these assets, where you kind of want to build up all those layers. So yeah, think about discoloration. Discoloration, dirt, dust. You want to add like damage, and then interaction. where like the tabletop is probably gonna be like the most destroyed because we're using that and we're putting stuff on top of it, right? So yeah, like all these layers, we kind of want to build them up ourselves so that we have like a lot of control over it. Cool. And then right now there are no damages in the base geo to keep it light, but in the close-ups you can see the effect of the silhouette value. If this item was interactable, should I modeling in some of these damages? Oh, I think that's what you're talking about when it comes to like this edge damage here, right? If it's just like small stuff like this, no need to model it in. That is fine if you keep it like surface level. This also doesn't look like a cabinet that should be really damaged, right? I like the current state that it's in. If you really wanted to make it damaged, then we would have to think about like the way that this thing is constructed. And then we would have to think about like, okay, if these were like individual like wooden planks, then maybe what we could do is like vary up like the edges and like make them like destroyed or something like that, right? But this is made out of like one solid wood chunk, so we're not going to see that much damage on it necessarily. Especially since this is more let's see. This is more just, yeah, for texturing purposes, right? Texturing material purposes. So yeah, damage, it kind of comes from like how big the damage is and how much you want to show that off, and also like how much of it is in line with the area around it and like the story that you're trying to tell, right? All right. Yeah, I hope that was helpful, Luke. Yeah, I would really try to make like the textures yourself. You're gonna learn so much. Find a lot of good references. See that you can just like really analyze like what you're looking at and try to like distill that into like separate layers as you can, right? Yeah, best of luck. Okay, cool. Last but not least, two people last in line. Mike P is asking, is this model using multiple sets of textures or just one? That is a good question. I don't have that context here actually. That would be a question for Luke in the chat. Which Luke is running behind on internet, so it might be a little bit before we get an answer to that question, Mike. Cool. Who's first in line? Will. Will is first. Multiple sets of textures. Okay. Could I get some feedback on lighting and the composition? So as for last week, Adam spoke about ways to emphasize the main points of light, for example. Could you help me with how I could use a light to pull the eye more towards the center of the scene, being my focal point? Yeah, sure. It's about just balancing your lights, right? Like we talked about the squint test, right? Where you squint your eyes, you can also just like blur the image as well and see if you're getting directed to that point. But there is more ways than just light to direct yourself, to direct the eye towards one point, right? Because what we could do is we could reduce the intensity of this guy, turn this TV like off completely, and then what is going to stand out is going to be the main light, right? Which could be a fair suggestion. So we could almost say, oh no, oh no, where's my color, please? Where if you wanted to only focus on lighting, like you could turn off the TV and balance the left light. But as I've been talking about it today a couple of times, like light is not the only thing that we have in our control. What we could also do is if we add like more story elements to the core of the scene and make them stand out more in a way that makes sense, what that story could be, that's up to you, right? But let's say if we stack up like a bunch of bottles, and like there's a bunch of beer bottles here, you can really tell that like someone has been drinking a lot, and maybe, I don't know, they're like smoking on the bar or something like that, and then we see like this fallen over chair. Maybe there's gonna be something that's gonna happen here as well, kind of to like support whatever is happening here. Right? We could then also use like detail in combination with potentially like the first one to draw the eye. But that relies on having like a lot of detail here. So like a lot of intensity. And I see like you have a flag here, like a banner with some flags. Maybe there's something in the story that could help you here, where you could have like a bunch of stuff happening here. And then for the rest of the scene, nothing really happens, right? So we're trying to pull the attention over there by just having like more interesting stuff to look at. Right, so that's what we're trying to do, and we can do that in multiple ways, right? Yeah. Let's see. If you're wondering purely about the light, it's really simple. Just do like option 1, and then you got it, right? I could give you like a third option as well. It's not going to be that effective here, I think. Depth of field. The reason why I say it's not going to be that effective here is because the main thing that I want to do, honestly, is I want to try to get rid of this TV. Because that TV is so distracting to me, because again, like there is a lot of information on that TV, which is going to like distract us from whatever's happening, right? So try to change the image on the TV, or the way that I was thinking about it is maybe you can use depth of field to like blur out like a little bit of the TV so that you don't really see that much of it again. But that is my thought process, right? I want to reduce whatever the hell's happening on that TV and make it less apparent. You can do that by darkening the image. You can replace the image. You can do depth of field or whatever. But I would really look into how to like reduce the amount of attention that is going to go towards that TV. Yeah. And then the second question is, it would be great to hear what I could push in the composition, because I feel like something is off. Is it too much or too little empty space? I understand the use of positive negative space. Is it the camera angles, not enough assets? Is it the wrong placement of assets? Well, right now, like nothing is really happening yet. Right? Like something is happening here, but I don't get like enough hints of what is happening in like, or why this is happening, right? Because this, I know that this is block out, right? Like most of the stuff is still like a very early stage, but like it would be interesting to see how you're gonna make it into what you want it to be, right? I know the context behind this. I know that this is like a cyberpunky like cop bar, right? I don't really get that. Like, there's nothing here to me that kind of like indicates that this is like a seedy rundown cop bar, right? Well, I kind of want to see more of those influences come in. And then maybe what I was thinking is that you could have like someone's like retirement party or something like that, right? Where instead of like banners, these are just like, I don't know, like it could be like a banner that says like, oh, Mike leaving party or something like that, right? And then you could kind of have like, I don't know, you could do some cool stuff where you dress it up with like, I don't know, there's like a police badge hanging from it or something like that, right? To just indicate that like, oh, this is someone's leaving party and this is a cult bar, and try to like merge all of those ideas that you have into like one consistent scene. Because that's something that we have talked on our community about, right? About this specifically. I want to see more cop related stuff come in. Even in the block out, right? So yeah. Story. That to me feels off. Like I don't really know what the story is yet. I don't know what and why we're here, what is happening. Like give us something, right? The way that I would look at it. Do you think that the wall in the back is green due to the light from the TV, or is it just a green wall? The wall in the back? Due to the light from the TV, or is it just a green wall? Oh, this one over here. What do you mean? Oh, from the ref. Oh, sorry. Where is the ref? Oh god, that's huge. Oh, that's definitely just bloom from the TV. I think that's just bloom kind of bleeding into like the back of the scene. This is the thing, right? Like one of the things here that is really pulling attention is we can only see one person's face, and that's the face that is like in the focal point, right? That's a huge way of pulling someone's attention, and deliberately we've hidden like all the other faces in the scene, right? Apart from this guy here, but we can barely make out what the hell is happening there anyway. Right? So we kind of have to like find a way around that, because if you don't want to make a character, or if you don't know how to do so, including myself, then we kind of have to find ways that we can go around that, right? Or it might be interesting to explore either a different story, or having like a meta human in there, right? And like posing them and like just giving them like a large trench coat and like kind of reduce like the amount of that you can see from them. Sort of like what's happening here. But yeah, the green light in the back. Yeah, that's sort of coming from like the bloom in the TV. I would not really bother to like replicate that. I think you could do that in the end when you do like post-processing and you get like a little bit more bloom on like your lights. That would probably be a way to do it, because it's happening here as well. Right? You can see that these lights are like really intense, and like the bloom is like pretty intense on them as well. Which I think in terms of like the concept and what it's trying to achieve is it's trying to hint at like the seediness, and that this is like a bar that is just like full of fucking smoke, you know? And that's why you see like this bloom, because it's almost like it's trying to penetrate like all the thick smoke that's in there from like all the people smoking inside. Yeah. Could be very cool to play around with as like an environmental effect, right? Just having like the smoky, thick air in there. Like even emphasizing it more than you're already doing, right? But that's, yeah, particle effects and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I hope that helps, Will. I hope that helps. Let's see. Was it everything? I think so. Yeah. But the main thing here is that we have to we have to find a way to like circumvent not having a character in our scene, right? Which is like a really tricky thing to do because yeah, I mean, we're so used to like seeing people's faces that we're like super attracted to them as well from like a visual perspective. So yeah, you got this, man. Gonna be sick. I like the dirty, grungy looking color contrast that's happening already. It's gonna be cool, man. And last one for today, we have Adam over here. If you could offer some feedback. You didn't feedback yourself this time? Oh my god. How dare you not give yourself feedback? Yeah, it looks pretty nice, man. I think you were talking about like all the images, right? Or are you just talking about this specific one? Because yeah, I do like this one. Looks quite nice. Has a lot of context to it as well. Just this. Okay. Yeah. I like it. It's so here's an interesting thing. It's like I feel like I want to see it more lit up, but I know the context of the scene by itself, and I feel like it matches the scene like really well. So I think it works in the context of the scene that you're working with, right? Like it's sort of like it's middle of the night and like someone's like shining down the wall because they lost like, I don't know, they lost like something, like it fell off the pier or something like that, right? I'm kind of getting those vibes from it as well. So I kind of like that. I don't think that I have anything specific to say on this though. Not really. Apart from like these almost like block out looking stones. Honestly, when I was zoomed out, I thought that they were just like not textured. But that's honestly the only thing that I have to say about this. But yeah, once you zoom in, you kind of see that they do have like a texture, but it just looks so weird. Maybe just making them more like brownish, right? So that they kind of blend in a little bit better. But that's honestly all I got. Normad, oh, sorry for skipping your question. After learning how to finish a game prop, what would be the topics I need to focus on to get into environment design and art? Okay, so design and art are two completely different things. If you want to become an environment artist, I would say if you can make one prop, try to make two props that are just like somewhat related and turn that into like a mini scene, right? We usually refer to them as like a diorama, where you just make like a collection of props and it can be like a mini scene, right? And then we can just work on like scaling it up and scaling it up as we go along. Because there's going to be a transition at some point where you have to turn your brain from working on a singular prop to like working on a bigger environment. And I think a diorama is like a good transition between those two. So you would make like a diorama that then allows you to focus on trim sheets or how to work with tilables or how to not necessarily make assets in a unique way that you did before. Yeah. I'll take it. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Adam. This is looking really nice. I like it. I think the only... yeah... It's more about the material, right? I don't know if you're looking for feedback on that, but it's like you have like recognizable pattern over here. Like these. Oh, it's so difficult though. Especially these guys, because they line up. Makes it a little bit recognizable. Mike P is saying, I would suggest a little bit more rounding of the edges of the bricks to better emphasize the wear of the borders. I honestly do agree with that as well. Um, I do agree with that as well. I wonder if that is a thing that is still on your mind, Adam, or if that's like too far along. Because yeah, like some roundness there could definitely help a little bit. Like a little bit. Yeah. That was the thing. So maybe for polish at the end of the scene. Okay. Awesome. Thanks for that, Mike. It was something that I was thinking about, but I just assumed that it was going to be a little bit too late. So it's always bad to make assumptions, but hey. Thanks a lot, man, just for answering. That was some great advice. Oh, no worries, no worries. And thank you for the question as well. Appreciate it. Yeah, but ever so slightly. Awesome. Cool stuff, man. Gonna look sick in the scene. Gonna be great. All right. I think that was it for today. Let me see. Oh my god, I cannot pronounce that. I'm so bad at pronouncing this. Chichlit City subscribing. Thank you so much for doing that. Appreciate it. That brings us to the end of our session. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna chill out for a little bit. Maybe do like a couple more pages from the book and then call it a day. Because work day tomorrow. But yeah, I appreciate everyone being here. As always, it's always lovely to see you all. Happy to chat with all of you. And thank you so much for all the good questions, for the people that ask questions as well. If you're interested in becoming a member, head on over to the description. You can find all bunch of good stuff there. And a whole bunch of free resources as well. So if that interests you, go and check that out. But yeah, again, appreciate you for being here. And have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye.